You've been there, haven't you? Explaining yourself over and over, justifying every word, every choice, every feeling. And yet, somehow, the more you explain, the more distant they become. The more you try to convince them, the less they truly see the force that lives inside you. Here's the truth. When you stop explaining yourself, you step into your power. You stop negotiating your worth with someone else. You stop shrinking to fit their expectations. And in that space, that sacred, unshakable space, avoidants, the ones who pull away, the ones who resist, begin to lean in. They begin to notice something irresistible, not because of what you say, but because of who you are. You see, love is not a puzzle to solve. It is not a debate to win. It is a reflection of your own integrity, your own self-possession, your own clarity. And when you stop chasing, when you stop defending, when you stop explaining, something profound happens. Your energy changes, your presence becomes magnetic. People who were once distant, people who were once elusive start to be drawn to that light. They start to fall, not for the explanations you offered, but for the strength, the completeness, the peace you radiate. Think about it. Why do you seek to explain yourself, to be accepted, to be understood? The highest form of freedom comes when you no longer ask permission to exist fully. You do not shrink. You do not justify. You simply live with courage, authenticity, and love for yourself. And that love, your unshakable love for you, is the very thing that makes someone else fall deeply, irrevocably, truly in love. So today, make this your declaration. I will no longer dilute my light. I will no longer bend my truth to fit someone else's comfort. I will walk in my life with confidence, presence, and clarity. And in that walk, in that energy, love will find me without chase, without need, without compromise. Stop explaining. Start shining. The love you've been seeking will not be in your words, it will be in your presence. And when you embody this power, you will discover something extraordinary. The hearts that once resisted will finally be unable to look away. Too often we spend our lives seeking validation from others. We seek approval for our choices, our feelings, our appearance, even our very existence. From the moment we learn to speak, there is an unspoken lesson drilled into us. If others accept you, you are worthy. If they reject you, you are not enough. And yet, what if I told you that this entire belief system is backward? What if the key to attraction, to deep connection, and to authentic love is not found in convincing others that you are worthy, but in first knowing, without question, that you are? Self-worth is not a negotiation. It is not a debate with another person over whether you are lovable, desirable, or deserving. True self-worth comes from an internal recognition of your own value, a recognition that does not fluctuate with external approval. When you ground yourself in this understanding, you are no longer dependent on someone else's validation to feel complete. You are no longer at the mercy of their moods, their judgments, or their doubts. You are free, unshakable, and magnetic. Think about the energy of someone who is constantly seeking approval. Every action is filtered, every word carefully measured, every emotion calculated. That person is exhausting to themselves and everyone around them. There is an invisible weight that accompanies the need to explain, to justify, to plead silently for acceptance. And when you carry that weight, you are not available to receive love. You are negotiating for scraps. You are giving away your power before anyone even has the chance to meet the true, sovereign version of yourself. Contrast that with the person who has embraced their self-worth. This person does not explain themselves unnecessarily. They do not apologize for existing. Their confidence is quiet, rooted, and deeply magnetic. They speak from a place of clarity, not fear. Their presence alone communicates that they know who they are, and that knowledge is intoxicating. People are drawn to this energy not because it is flashy or loud, but because it signals stability, integrity, and authenticity. Self-worth is the foundation upon which all healthy relationships are built. Without it, relationships become arenas of constant negotiation, compromise, and anxiety. You bend, you mold, you try to fit into someone else's expectations, and in doing so, you teach them that your value is conditional. You teach them that they must chase, cajole, or convince you to stay. But when you operate from true self-worth, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer the pursuer seeking validation. Instead, you are the magnetic force others are drawn to because you are complete in yourself. It is essential to recognize that self-worth is not arrogance. It is not superiority, and it is certainly not dismissiveness. True self-worth is quiet, profound, and rooted in a deep respect for oneself. It allows you to honor your needs, your boundaries, and your desires without guilt or shame. It allows you to step into relationships as a full, whole person, not someone looking to fill a void or fix a lack. And paradoxically, it is this very completeness that awakens desire and deep love in others, including those who are naturally avoidant or hesitant. Every moment you spend trying to justify your existence, your choices, or your emotions to someone else is a moment you are surrendering your power. Every explanation you give is a subtle message that your worth is negotiable. But when you stop explaining, when you embody your self-worth without apology, the dynamic transforms. Others sense it immediately. They feel the groundedness, the certainty, and the authenticity. And that certainty is irresistible because it mirrors the same thing they long to achieve within themselves. Self-worth is not selfish. It is the most generous gift you can offer to yourself and to everyone around you. It frees you from dependency, from the endless cycle of seeking validation, and from the exhausting need to be seen as enough in someone else's eyes. And it is only when you stand in that space, unshakable and whole, that love begins to flow naturally toward you, effortlessly, powerfully, and deeply. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define who you are and what you will accept in your life. They are not walls to keep people out. They are the sacred architecture of self-respect, the framework that allows your energy, your presence, and your love to flourish. Without boundaries, you give away your power in subtle ways. You say yes when you mean no, you accommodate when it drains you, and you stretch yourself thin to satisfy the expectations, moods, and demands of others. And in doing so, you teach the world that your time, your energy, and your soul are negotiable. The power of boundaries lies in their simplicity and clarity. When you know your limits, what you will accept and what you will not, you create a space of safety and respect for yourself. You no longer tolerate behaviors, words, or actions that diminish your sense of self. This is not about control or manipulation. It is about honor. Honor for your own emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. Boundaries communicate a profound truth that you are a person of value and that your presence is not something to be taken lightly. Many people struggle with boundaries because you confuse them with rejection or selfishness. They fear that saying no will drive others away, or that standing firm will create conflict. Yet the paradox is that boundaries attract the very people who deserve to be in your life. When you are clear about your limits, you send a message that you are whole, grounded, and aware of your needs. People who are aligned with your values, who respect your energy and your autonomy, will naturally gravitate toward you. Those who are not will either adjust or fade away, and this is not loss, it is liberation. Boundaries are particularly transformative when dealing with avoidant individuals. These are people who naturally pull away, who fear closeness, or who struggle to commit emotionally. Many feel that they must chase, appease, or explain themselves constantly to hold their attention. But here is the hidden truth. Avoidants are drawn to clarity, not confusion, confidence, not desperation, and self-respect, not surrender. When you establish boundaries and refuse to over-explain, you communicate strength without aggression, presence without neediness, and love without compromise. That energy is magnetic because it challenges the avoidant to meet you on your terms rather than trying to bend you to theirs. A boundary can be as simple as saying, "I will not tolerate disrespect," or "I need time to recharge and process before responding." It can be as profound as refusing to accept manipulative behavior or choosing relationships that honor your emotional integrity. Each boundary you set reinforces your inner sovereignty. Each no spoken with calm clarity is an affirmation. I am enough. I am complete. My energy is sacred, and I will not dilute it to meet someone else's fears or insecurities. Boundaries are also the secret to sustainable love. Love that flows within boundaries is not chaotic, draining, or dependent. It is conscio. Us, mutual, and nourishing. By defining your limits, you teach others how to treat you. You make space for connection that is authentic rather than transactional. You show that love is not about clinging, sacrificing, or performing. It is about mutual respect, freedom, and presence. When you embrace the power of boundaries, you reclaim your emotional power and awaken a magnetic energy within yourself. You stop explaining, apologizing, or justifying your existence to anyone who does not align with your values. You create a life and relationships that honor the truth of who you are. And in that space of clarity and self-respect, love responds. Not out of obligation, not out of fear, but because it recognizes integrity, courage, and the undeniable magnetism of someone who refuses to compromise their worth. Detachment from outcome is one of the most misunderstood and yet most powerful principles of human relationships. So often, we chase, we plead, we strategize, all in the name of making things work with someone else. We invest our energy, our emotions, and our very sense of self into the hope that a particular person, situation, or relationship will turn out exactly as we want it to. And in doing so, we unknowingly anchor our happiness, our peace, and our self-worth to something outside of ourselves. But here is the truth. The moment you detach from the outcome, you reclaim your power, your freedom, and your ability to attract love in its purest, most profound form. Detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean that you stop caring, stop trying, or stop loving. Detachment is the conscious choice to release the illusion that you can control another person's feelings, decisions, or timing. It is the recognition that your value, your completeness, and your joy are not negotiable. They are inherent. When you detach, you stop bending, apologizing, and over-explaining. In an attempt to manipulate the outcome, you stop trying to fix, convince, or cajole someone into seeing you the way you want them to see you. And paradoxically, it is this very release that makes you magnetic. Think about energy for a moment. When you are attached to an outcome, there is tension, there is fear, and there is desperation lurking beneath every interaction. That energy is heavy, unstable, and exhausting, not just for you, but for anyone around you. People sense it, even subconsciously. Avoidants in particular are highly sensitive to neediness and pressure. They recoil from energy that demands or clings because it triggers their natural instinct to pull away. But when you detach from outcome, your energy shifts. It becomes calm, grounded, and unshakable. It says, I am here, I am whole, I am complete, regardless of what you choose to do. And that energy, quiet, unwavering, confident, is magnetic. Detachment is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastery over how your emotions dictate your actions. You can feel deeply, care profoundly, and still maintain the understanding that someone else's choices do not define your worth. You can express your love fully, share your heart, and honor your desires without becoming trapped in the cycle of expectation and disappointment. When you release the need to control the outcome, you stop negotiating your soul for someone else's approval. You step into a state of alignment where love flows naturally, freely, and powerfully. There is also a profound spiritual dimension to detachment. Life, relationships, and love are not contracts to be forced. They are reflections of alignment, timing, and mutual respect. By releasing attachment, you invite the universe, or the natural flow of life, to meet you where you are. Rather than trying to bend life to fit your plan, you create space for experiences and connections that are authentic, nourishing, and deeply transformative. You stop creating resistance, and you start allowing love to arrive in its most genuine form. Detachment also strengthens boundaries, clarity, and self-respect. When you are not attached to a specific outcome, you are free to walk away from situations that compromise your integrity, drain your energy, or diminish your value. You no longer chase approval or validation because you understand that your worth is inherent and non-negotiable. And in that freedom, avoidance, or anyone who struggles with emotional availability, begin to notice something irresistible, a person who does not need them to feel complete, yet is fully present and open to love. Ultimately, detachment from outcome is the key to living, loving, and relating from a place of power, presence, and authenticity. It allows you to engage with others without fear, to love without anxiety, and to exist without the constant burden of proving your worth. When you step into this space, the relationships you attract are no longer based on compulsion or need. They are based on respect, admiration, and genuine connection. And in that sacred, liberated space, love responds, not because you chase it, explain it, or earn it, but because you embody the fullness of who you are. Authenticity is one of the most powerful forces in human relationships, yet it is often one of the most misunderstood. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that in order to be loved, we must justify ourselves, explain our choices, and shape-shift to fit the expectations of others. We apologize for our thoughts, our feelings, and even our natural ways of being, believing that only by crafting an acceptable version of ourselves can we earn connection. But the truth is far more liberating. Love, respect, and deep attraction are not won through explanation. They are magnetized through authenticity. You choose authenticity over explanation. You stop asking permission to exist fully. You stop trying to defend your emotions, your values, or your decisions. You recognize that your life, your choices, and your presence are inherently valuable and worthy of respect. Every time you over-explain, you are subtly communicating a lack of trust in yourself. You are saying consciously or unconsciously, I am not enough as I am, and I need to convince you otherwise. This neediness erodes your energy, diminishes your presence, and repels the very love you are seeking. Authenticity, on the other hand, communicates the opposite. I am whole. I am complete. I do not need to justify my existence, and I am here fully without compromise. Authenticity is a magnetic energy because it is rare. Most people are wearing masks, social, professional, or relational, to fit in, to gain approval, or to avoid conflict. When you show up as your true self, unfiltered and unapologetic, you immediately stand out. People sense it. They are drawn to the confidence, the honesty, and the courage it takes to be fully seen without defense. Avoidants, in particular, are often drawn to this energy because it presents stability without pressure. It offers a mirror of calm self-possession, a presence that is inviting but not demanding. It challenges them, not with confrontation, but with the undeniable force of someone who cannot be manipulated, chased, or explained into conformity. Authenticity is not about being rigid or indifferent. It is about alignment between your inner truth and your outward expression. It is about speaking when you feel, acting when it resonates, and choosing paths that honor your integrity. When you are authentic, you no longer over-explain why you need time alone, why you make certain decisions, or why you feel the way you do. Instead, your presence, your consistency, and your roundedness communicate your values without a single word. People begin to see, hear, and feel you in a way that is deeper and more profound than any justification could ever convey. There is also a transformative personal power in choosing authenticity. When you release the compulsion to explain, you free yourself from the endless mental loop of worrying about perception, judgment, and acceptance. Your energy is no longer scattered trying to manage impressions. It is concentrated, powerful, and deeply magnetic. You reclaim your life, your time, and your emotional energy. Every interaction becomes a reflection of who you truly are, rather than a performance to satisfy someone else's expectations. Moreover, authenticity creates fertile ground for genuine love and connection. People are drawn to those who are complete in themselves, not because they have been convinced, persuaded, or constantly reassured. When you live authentically, you attract relationships that honor your truth, rather than attempting to bend it. Avoidants, who often fear emotional engulfment or loss of independence, find themselves irresistibly drawn to someone who is authentic, grounded, and self-sufficient. You do not need to explain. Your presence alone tells the story of confidence, self-respect, and inner alignment. Ultimately, choosing authenticity over explanation is a declaration of sovereignty. It is a commitment to your own truth, your own energy, and your own value. It is a recognition that you do not need to justify your existence to anyone, because your life, your love, and your presence are inherently worthy. And in this state of unshakable authenticity, attraction becomes effortless, relationships become aligned, and love flows naturally to those who are capable of seeing and honoring the real you. The mirror effect is one of the most profound, yet often overlooked dynamics in human relationships. Simply put, people tend to reflect back to us the energy, beliefs, and behaviors that we carry within ourselves. If you are anxious, self-doubting, or constantly seeking approval, that is what you will encounter in the world. If you are grounded, confident, and self-respecting, that too will be mirrored back to you. This principle is particularly powerful in relationships with avoidant individuals who are sensitive to the energy they encounter and often respond to it unconsciously. They will gravitate toward the stability, confidence, and self-possession that you embody, because it reflects a part of themselves they secretly desire but may not yet fully access. The mirror effect begins with self-awareness. Before you can truly influence the energy that others bring into your life, you must first understand your own internal landscape. How do you respond under stress? How do you handle rejection or distance? How do you communicate your needs and boundaries? Every action, every word, every subtle vibration you emit is a signal to the world. Avoidants, in particular, pick up on these signals at a deep, almost instinctual level. They are drawn to what is authentic and whole, yet repelled by what feels needy, desperate, or incomplete. The energy you carry becomes a mirror of what they see and feel in themselves. When you step into your own wholeness, the mirror effect becomes a powerful tool of attraction. You no longer expend energy trying to convince someone to love or accept you. You stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and overcompensating. Instead, you embody a calm, grounded presence that communicates, "I am complete, I am enough, I am whole, independent of your approval." This energy naturally resonates with avoidants, who are often wired to test boundaries and distance themselves from overt emotional neediness. When they encounter someone who is centered, and self-possessed, it challenges them to rise to the same level of awareness and engagement, often stirring feelings of admiration, respect, and attraction. The mirror effect also highlights the importance of integrity and congruence. People, particularly avoidants, can sense when there is a gap between what you say and how you act. Words can be hollow if they are not backed by the energy you project. Authenticity in your actions becomes the magnet. If you claim to value yourself but constantly compromise your boundaries, that inconsistency is reflected back to you in the way others interact with you. Conversely, when you consistently live in alignment with your self-respect, values, and truth, the energy you emit draws others who are capable of responding to that level of integrity. They mirror your groundedness, your clarity, and your self-possession. Another crucial aspect of the mirror effect is emotional resonance. Emotions are contagious. Calmness invites calmness. Confidence inspires confidence. Self-love sparks love in others. When you operate from a place of emotional stability, you create a reflection that encourages avoidants to lower their defenses. They may have spent a lifetime guarding against vulnerability, but when faced with someone who embodies emotional clarity and strength, it mirrors a possibility for them. A possibility of connection without compromise, of love without suffocation. The mirror effect also teaches a vital lesson. The energy you tolerate is the energy you attract. If you accept disrespect, clinginess, or emotional manipulation, you are inviting those patterns to continue. But when you uphold self-respect, clarity, and authenticity, the mirror effect ensures that you attract people who can reflect that same level of awareness. You no longer settle for fragmented love or shallow engagement. Instead, you draw relationships that resonate with your highest self. Ultimately, understanding and harnessing the mirror effect transforms the way you relate to yourself and others. You begin to recognize that the key to attracting love, particularly from avoidance, is not in chasing, explaining, or negotiating. It is in becoming the reflection of the energy you wish to receive. The more you embody self-respect, clarity, and groundedness, the more profoundly the world mirrors it back to you, creating authentic, magnetic, and deeply transformative connections. Energy is the silent language of connection. It is the force that precedes words, the subtle vibration that others feel long before you even speak. Many people believe that attraction, understanding, or influence comes primarily from what they say, through explanations, justifications, or arguments. But the truth is far more powerful. Words are fleeting, temporary, and often filtered by interpretation, while energy is raw, authentic, and universally understood. Especially when dealing with avoidant individuals, energy, not words, is what communicates your value, your presence, and your worth. Every thought, emotion, and belief you carry is transmitted outward as energy. It is impossible to hide. Even the most carefully constructed words cannot mask the underlying vibration you are emitting. If you are anxious, needy, or desperate for approval, it shows. No amount of eloquent explanation can replace the subtle cues your body, tone, and demeanor project. Avoidants, who are wired to detect emotional dependence and inconsistency, sense this immediately. They respond not to what you say, but to the underlying energy that shapes your presence. When your energy communicates self-possession, confidence, and calm, it draws them in. When it communicates doubt, fear, or over-explanation, it pushes them away. Energy communicates boundaries, values, and intentions far more clearly than words ever could. Saying "I need space" carries far less weight than embodying calm detachment and self-respect. Explaining "I value myself and my time" is less impactful than simply living it. Energy is experienced on a level that bypasses conscious thought. It resonates in the subconscious and triggers a response long before someone has processed your words. This is why people are naturally drawn to those who carry a grounded, magnetic energy. They feel the completeness, stability, and authenticity in a way that words alone could never convey. Understanding the power of energy also shifts the way you approach relationships. When you stop over-explaining or trying to convince someone of your worth, you are not being passive. You are mastering your energy. You are saying, through presence rather than argument, I am enough. I am complete. I am grounded, regardless of your response. This creates a subtle but powerful magnetic pull. Avoidants, who often fear emotional engulfment or pressure, are particularly responsive to this energy. They sense that they cannot manipulate, chase, or control you, and that absence of neediness invites curiosity, respect, and ultimately emotional engagement. Energy is also cumulative. It is not about isolated moments or single interactions. It is about the consistent vibration you carry over time. When your energy reflects self-possession, authenticity, and calm confidence, it becomes a reliable signal to others that you are stable and complete. People do not fall in love with a single explanation or justification. They fall in love with the consistent energy that communicates security, integrity, and presence. The more you master your energy, the less you need to rely on words to convey your worth, and the more deeply others respond to the resonance you radiate. Furthermore, energy is contagious. Just as fear, doubt, or anxiety can be transmitted unconsciously, so too can confidence, calm, and self-respect. When you carry strong, grounded energy, you create a mirror for others to reflect. Avoidants, who may struggle with emotional vulnerability, are often drawn to this energy because it models the emotional state they unconsciously desire: balance, calm, and authenticity. Your energy sets the stage for connection, attraction, and trust in a way that explanations and reasoning never can. Ultimately, energy, not words, is the language of magnetic presence. It communicates your boundaries, your self-worth, and your authenticity. It shapes the dynamic of your relationships, particularly with those who are emotionally avoidant. When you focus on embodying grounded, confident, and aligned energy, you no longer need to over-explain, justify, or chase. Others respond naturally, effortlessly, and profoundly, not to your words, to the resonance of your presence. Energy speaks louder than any explanation, and it is the secret force behind lasting attraction, deep connection, and transformative love. Emotional freedom is one of the most powerful forces you can cultivate in your life, particularly when it comes to relationships. Many people unconsciously give away their emotional power by clinging, over-explaining, or over-analyzing their worth and the reactions of others. They tie their happiness to someone else's approval, their confidence to someone else's acceptance, and their self-esteem to someone else's attention. But the truth is that emotional freedom is magnetic. When you liberate yourself from the need to control, justify, or manipulate feelings, you create a presence that is irresistible. Not because you try harder, but because you are fully aligned with your own inner power. Emotional freedom begins with ownership. It is the conscious acknowledgement that your emotions belong to you and you alone. You do not need to rely on someone else to validate, fix, or soothe them. You do not need to explain why you feel a certain way or negotiate your worth based on someone else's reactions. By taking full responsibility for your emotional state, you step out of the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and step into a state of sovereignty. This autonomy is profoundly attractive because it signals completeness. It communicates that you are not dependent, clingy, or desperate, qualities that often trigger avoidant patterns in others, but instead you are whole and self-contained. Avoidants are particularly sensitive to emotional neediness because it can feel suffocating, pressuring, or demanding. When you are constantly explaining, justifying, or seeking reassurance, you inadvertently push them away, triggering the very distance you fear. Emotional freedom flips this dynamic. When you demonstrate calm, grounded self-possession, it encourages them to engage rather than retreat. Your energy signals, without words, that connection is available, safe, and balanced, but not forced or needy. This magnetism is not about manipulation. It is about embodying a state of being that naturally draws people in, including those who are hesitant or avoidant. Emotional freedom also allows you to set and maintain boundaries with ease. When your sense of self is not tied to the reactions of others, saying no, stepping back, or asserting your needs becomes an act of empowerment rather than conflict. You are no longer negotiating for validation. You are simply honoring your own truth. This clarity and integrity are magnetic because they communicate authenticity and strength. People, particularly those who struggle with avoidance, are drawn to those who do not compromise their emotional sovereignty yet remain open and loving. The liberating power of emotional freedom lies in its ability to create space. Space for self-reflection, space for growth, space for connection without neediness or pressure. When you stop seeking constant reassurance or approval, you allow relationships to breathe. You allow attraction and connection to develop organically, based on mutual respect and alignment rather than compulsion or fear. Avoidants, who often fear emotional entanglement, are particularly responsive to this space because it creates a sense of safety without surrendering your power. Emotional freedom is also deeply aligned with authenticity. When you release the need to explain or justify your emotions, you can express them fully, openly, and honestly. You no longer hide your feelings to please, perform, or gain acceptance. Instead, you communicate your emotional reality from a place of strength, clarity, and integrity. This authenticity acts like a mirror, reflecting a sense of calm, ground, and energy that encourages connection and attraction. Ultimately, emotional freedom is a magnetic force because it embodies self-possession, integrity, and authenticity. It communicates that you are complete, that you are grounded, and that your energy is sacred. Avoidants, who may instinctively pull away from neediness or pressure, are drawn to this presence because it challenges them to rise to the same level of emotional maturity and alignment. When you cultivate emotional freedom, you no longer need to over-explain, overcompensate, or chase approval. Love responds naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully to the energy of someone who is emotionally free, sovereign, and fully themselves. Love is often misunderstood. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that love is something we must earn, chase, or plead for. We confuse attention, approval, and validation with affection, thinking that if we explain enough, compromise enough, or sacrifice enough, someone will finally love us fully. But the truth is that authentic love is never a product of negotiation, coercion, or desperation. Love is a choice, a conscious, deliberate decision that flows naturally when two complete individuals recognize and honor each other's presence. Understanding this principle transforms the way you engage in relationships, particularly with avoidance, and shifts the dynamic from chasing to magnetic attraction. When you operate from the belief that love is a plea, you relinquish your power. Every word, every gesture, every effort becomes weighted with the unspoken hope that it will be accepted. You justify yourself, over-explain, and overcompensate in an attempt to secure affection, and yet no amount of reasoning can create genuine love. Love cannot be manufactured through anxiety or neediness. It emerges only when two people choose to meet each other fully, freely, and without coercion. Recognizing this truth allows you to step into a state of self-possession, where your energy and your presence communicate worth, authenticity, and readiness for real connection. Love as a choice begins with self-love. Before anyone else can choose to love you fully, you must first choose to love yourself. This does not mean arrogance, ego, or superiority. It means recognizing your inherent value and living in alignment with your own truth. When you honor yourself, your boundaries, and your integrity, you no longer rely on external approval to feel whole. You no longer plead for acceptance because you already inhabit a state of completeness. This self-possession is magnetic because it signals that you are not dependent, needy, or desperate, qualities that often trigger avoidant behavior in others. Instead, you exude an energy of calm, confidence, strength, and authenticity that naturally draws love toward you. Choosing love rather than pleading for it also changes the dynamics of relationships. It allows for clarity, mutual respect, and conscious connection. You no longer bend or dilute yourself to fit someone else's expectations. You no longer over-explain your emotions, justify your actions, or attempt to control their reactions. Instead, you operate from a place of alignment and integrity, making it clear that your love is available, generous, and open, but never at the cost of your own wholeness. This approach creates a natural tension that is magnetic to avoidance. They are drawn to someone who is both present and independent, loving yet unattached, open yet self-contained. Love as a choice is also about freedom. It is about allowing the other person the space to meet you willingly, rather than forcing, manipulating, or convincing them to comply with your expectations. When you release the need for validation, you step into a space of emotional sovereignty where love is mutual, balanced, and sustainable. Avoidants respond to this freedom because it removes pressure, fosters trust, and demonstrates that connection does not require compromise of self. By making love a choice rather than a plea, you create a relational environment that is healthy, authentic, and magnetic. Furthermore, seeing love as a choice shifts your focus from outcome to presence. You no longer obsess over whether someone will commit, respond, or reciprocate in the way you desire. Instead, you cultivate a state of being that is attractive, whole, and alive. Your presence becomes the invitation, and your integrity becomes the magnet. Love responds naturally to those who embody it as a choice, rather than those who demand it through explanation, justification, or need. Ultimately, understanding that love is a choice and not a plea empowers you to reclaim your energy, your presence, and your life. It allows you to engage in relationships with clarity, authenticity, and freedom, creating connections that are deep, lasting, and mutually nourishing. When you live from this principle, you no longer chase, negotiate, or over-explain. You simply exist as someone whole, confident, and ready to love on your own terms. And in that space, true love flows effortlessly, powerfully, and irrevocably, attracting those who are capable of choosing it consciously and fully. Thank you for trusting me with your journey. May your path be filled with clarity, strength, and unstoppable energy. Goodbye, and remember, your power, your worth, and your love are already within you. Shine brightly,